if we really are going to compete with TradFi systems, if we really are going to try and get up to these crazy high transactions per second numbers, we're going to have to use some different technology than the public internet, because TradFi doesn't use the public internet. Even Google does not use the public internet, ironically enough. The biggest investor in fiber nowadays is Facebook.
Thank you for doing this, sir.
Yeah.
To start with, can you please tell me your name and what you do?
Sure. I'm Austin Federa. I'm one of the 3 co-founders of DoubleZero.
Very good. We'll get to DoubleZero in a little bit, but could you please tell me a little history first? What is the path you took to co-founding DoubleZero?
Yeah, I mean, I did not think I was going to be a founder if you go back like 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
It was never really something that was like on my mind. It's like, I got to do this thing. But I started working in crypto in sort of 2018, 2017, working for a fintech company that was like pivoting into blockchain.
It's a terrible time to pivot into that. 17 to 18?
The company was already failing, and then they just continued to fail. But I got hooked on the concept. Went to work for Republic, worked for Republic Crypto, helped them launch a bunch of things there. And then went on to work for Bison Trails up until they were acquired by Coinbase. And then spent the last 4 years at Solana Labs and then Solana Foundation, initially working on product and marketing, and then running comms, and then spent the last 2.5 years running strategy for the organization.
Why did you move into the Solana ecosystem?
Yeah, I didn't intend to, actually. I've been working with a bunch of different L2s and other L1s at Bison Trails. They're a blockchain infrastructure company. And a guy I had hired back in the day introduced me to Toli and Raj, and it was one of those things where I'd love to say I was like clairvoyant and saw this thing was going to be $100 billion protocol back when it was like $1.20. But really what it was is I liked Anatoli's approach to building a network. It was a zig while everyone was making a zag. And so just looking at that and thinking like, there's something here that even if it's not successful, I'm going to learn a ton about this space in this industry. And so it's the classic, just take an opportunity you think you're going to learn stuff at. Turned out to be an incredible fit, an incredible company.
Cool. Could you expand a little bit on the zig where everyone else is zagging? What exactly do you mean there?
So like at the time, you got to remember, this is when we were still calling it ETH2, right? And the Beacon chain had just launched, and Bison Trails was running about 65% of the Ethereum network, Ethereum 2 network at that time. This is pre-user transaction, so it was fine. But I spent a lot of time working on that, and I had a lot of these questions like, how does DeFi work in a sharded environment? Like, are we going to get like the Uniswap chain, and then we're going to have the Aave chain? Because this was back when sharding was on the roadmap, not these independent L2s in the same way. And that was the vision everyone was building for. Near was a sharded protocol. Everything at the time was a sharded protocol. And I had all these questions about DeFi and working. And I kind of was like, I must be missing something. There's a bunch of really smart engineers working on this. I work on product and marketing. Like, I must be wrong here. And I got on a call with Toli, and I was like, explain to me like how this ETH2 thing is going to work when we're talking about sharding and DeFi. And he was like, oh, it'll never work. You got to build one global state machine. You got to synchronize it as close to the speed of light as possible. You got to go after NASDAQ and NYZ. And like, that's still what Toli says today. But he was saying that in 2020 as well. And that's the vision that sold me on, maybe this is the wrong bet, but it's a non-consensus bet. And, you know, if you're mid-career, which I was at that time, you want the non-consensus bet. That's where you're going to learn what everyone else is not thinking about.
That's very cool. A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, losing my track, I interviewed Armani with Backpack.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You guys sound similar in terms of why you moved to Solana, but you came at it from very different directions. He was an engineer, like total engineer. Yeah. He's just like, it's not going to work.
Right.
Right. But I love that you can have multiple approaches to getting to this idea that the ETH roadmap wasn't going to work. And and at that time, obviously it wasn't, it was completely non-consensus, and now everybody kind of looks back. So
yeah,
kudos to you. Bad on me. I lose money. Boo boo. All right, let's. You're
a big Cello guy?
I was a big ETH guy.
Yeah.
I'm holding my ETH bags, crying for the past 18 months. Yeah. But yeah, right. Let's go to the present. You left Solana Foundation to start DoubleZero. Why?
Why?
Or sorry, let's start with. Why did you think that DoubleZero needed to be started? What was the reason for thinking like, and then you said you didn't think that you were going to be a founder, and then here you are becoming a founder.
Yeah,
so obviously you must have been passionate, right?
There's like, let me start with that second one. There's like kind of two types of founders I found. There's those who really want to be a founder, and those who get an idea stuck in their head they can't get rid of.
Okay.
And I was not the first type. I did not have an aspiration to do this. I was very like happy working for like Raj and Toli in the early days and kind of helping be a force multiplier on what they were doing. And then continuing that type of work at the foundation. But this idea for DoubleZero, like it kept sticking in my head. And it was because I was working, with the team building FireDancer. And this is the new validator client for Solana, capable of doing 1 million transactions per second. And it can do that. You can do FireDancer at 1 million transactions per second. You can't run it on the public internet. And so that was the problem. If you saw the demo at Breakpoint last year, where there was the FireDancer cluster running 6 nodes on 4 continents at 1 million transactions per second, that was running on the DoubleZero network. And the real unlock here was realizing that like the public internet, if we really are going to compete with TradFi systems, if we really are going to try and get up to these crazy high transactions per second numbers, we're going to have to use some different technology than the public internet. Because TradFi doesn't use the public internet.
No, they don't.
Right? Even Google does not use the public internet, ironically enough. The biggest investor in fiber nowadays is Facebook. And they're wiring up countries, and they wired up the Philippines not out of the goodness of their heart, but to sell more ads. Right?
Oh, of course.
They didn't have enough internet connectivity to sell ads. And so they wanted Instagram and Facebook and these media-heavy applications to come in. And so they had to get down to physical fiber networks. And I think it's time crypto takes that true base layer infrastructure seriously.
Right. And then now we can finally talk about DoubleZero. I'm a great interviewer. So what exactly is DoubleZero?
Yeah, so DoubleZero is a physical fiber infrastructure network for high-performance distributed systems. And all those words you break down, physical fiber infrastructure, these are cables that are plugged into one another, right? We're not talking about software overlay networks like a BitTorrent is a software overlay network or libp2p or something like that. And it's for high-performance systems. So we can use technologies that aren't available on the public internet, like multicast. We can have extremely low jitter, very low latency, increased bandwidth. And really what we're just doing is we're supercharging the pipes coming in and out of every validator and RPC on blockchain networks. And by doing that, it allows networks to move much more quickly. It allows the validator clients to actually exceed the performance they can do right now. This is like, you look at Solana and you're like, okay, the validator client can do 1 million TPS. You look at Aptos and Sui, their dev nets and their software packages can do far more than their mainnets actually see. Because when it gets down to it, mainnet load is different than testnet. That's definitely true. But also the fiber connectivity, the physical connectivity between these servers is not actually robust enough for us to run these systems anywhere near high performance. It's, to use an analogy that's very pressing in Dubai, you've got a Ferrari, but it's stuck in traffic.
A lot of traffic here.
A lot of Ferraris, too.
A lot of Ferraris. All right, yeah, I like that. And I would say, tell me if this is wrong, but I don't think this kind of project would have been possible earlier in crypto's history because physically doing things in the world, I feel like it takes a lot more, how do you say, buy-in and money up front to do. And, crypto being so nascent, especially 5-6 years ago, even, people would be like, no, we're not going to do it yet.
I mean, one of my co-founders, Matteo, actually kicked the tires on a project like this a few years ago. But the fastest thing back then was Ethereum, doing 7 to 21 things per second.
Yeah.
And there was just no need at that time. I mean, even today, an Ethereum block, 98% of the time is not execution. It's just networking and consensus and all these other things that take a long time.
Yeah.
But I think we're finally at a place where we have high enough performance networks that you can have a lot of gain by going back to the base layer.
Yeah. Also, I think in general, you have enough proof that this is a real thing and that people will use it and it's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Those two things combined. Right. Is DoubleZero mostly a hardware thing, or is it also like a software problem?
So it's a little, I mean, the core unit of value on the network is fiber, right? And so there is a software system as well that we've built that it kind of helps manage that. And one of the main pieces there is these systems exist today, right? Like Jump, Citadel, Amazon, Microsoft, they all run private fiber networks, but they're all centrally managed by like one company and one entity. We wanted to make it possible to have multiple independent contributors on this system. And so a lot of the software work has been about how do you build these, like kind of rebuild these systems in ways that allow for decentralization to come into them. So today we have 6 independent network contributors contributing fiber to what will be the mainnet when it launches, probably September range. And, you know, there's only 21 tier 1 ISPs in the world. So we're getting close to the levels of decentralization you can claim on the internet.
Are these providers from that group of people, from those 21 groups, or is it like
no,
completely
it's totally
new?
separate right now.
New.
Yeah, so most of those like major internet companies are either publicly traded or they're owned by PE firms. And so a pre-launch token project is like a very hard thing to sell them on. But we have 2 trading firms. We have Jump Crypto and Galaxy Digital that are network contributors from the fiber side. We have 2 bare metal providers also contributing network, TerraSwitch and Latitude, as well as 2 VC firms that are actually running fiber themselves.
What's the usual way this works? They buy fiber from someone who's already put run it out.
Yeah, so there's actually a good amount of not exactly unused fiber, but fiber that's not actually has an active lease on it.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that fiber is very expensive to run. It has a pretty long usability life too. And so most of these people have like long-term leases or sort of mid-term leases on these pieces of fiber. And they, you know, if you're Jump, you may move every 2 years when a faster cable comes out. But you know, it's all like putting in new fiber is hundreds of millions of dollars, and so we're not at a place where we can do that yet.
Right, of course, yeah. I see. Right, and for this, have you had to design any like specific hardware, or are you just using kind of the hardware that's already used for fiber?
Yeah, I mean the great news here is like there are a lot of industry standard robust switching appliances that we can use. We're using the Arista platform at the moment, but we'll qualify a few other ones in. Building your own hardware is a bit of a nightmare. And so this is part of why the filtration and deduplication on the network uses field programmable gate arrays. And that way, like FPGAs are quite fast for our applications. And that way we can update the software image on them and tweak the performance of it without having to resort to like building new silicon for like an ASIC or something like that.
Right.
ASICs work great for Bitcoin because it hasn't changed in, 15 years. They're a little harder when you're talking about evolving smart contract platforms.
I bet Tully would be disappointed that you're not making your own hardware.
Well, we'll see.
No, I'm just kidding.
A man reaches a certain age where he wants to make hardware.
A man reaches a certain age where he wants to make a phone.
Yes.
A mobile phone.
Yes.
Right.
I'm sure we'll, someday, I think if we're dreaming big, we'll be launching our own satellite network, and
wow,
that feels like hardware.
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. All right. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds because it'll just make me dizzy, and I don't think my audience would really get into it either. But you also have a token, yes?
We do. And
I would just want to kind of like an overview of how the token fits into incentivizing, I guess, the fiber providers, and then I guess users who are going to use this, or projects who are going to use this. I just don't quite understand how this works. Yeah.
So it's kind of deceptively simple.
Okay.
Validators pay in their native token to use the DoubleZero network.
So validators can pay in Solana.
Then. Yeah, Solana, Aptos, Sui, ETH, whatever they happen to be, right? That gets swapped into a DoubleZero's native token.
Okay.
About 50% of that's burned. About 50% of that is distributed out to the fiber providers as rewards for the network. If you think about it in a smart contract system, the main value is compute, right? So if you run a validator, I'm paying you for your compute and for you to secure the network.
Yeah.
DoubleZero, we don't have token custody on the network. It's not a stateful network in that perspective. So what we need to do is reward bandwidth contributors for the proportional value they bring to the network, and tokens are a perfect way to do that.
Okay. So tokens are so DoubleZero tokens are emitted then based on bandwidth, or
No, so sort of you can think about it as like there's no. I think one of the curses of many DePIN projects, they have static rewards. Just for existing, I'm going to give you some tokens.
Right.
I don't think that's a great model when we're talking about this, because what we want to do is reward useful fiber. And useful fiber is fiber that goes from one concentration of stake to another concentration of stake. And so that means there's always data flows and monetary flows moving over that system. And so you can think about it as like, effectively your validator pays in tokens to operate on the network.
Right.
50% of those tokens are destroyed, approximately. And then the other remaining tokens are distributed out to the bandwidth providers for rewards. So that in that system, you kind of have capital inflows coming in from what validators pay, but you don't have new tokens being created as a result of that. They're not actually buying new tokens. It's similar to kind of like a BNB model for a token.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to. So there's a fixed token supply, or is there an inflation rate?
There is a small amount of inflation, because we do need these things called network controllers, which basically they have a little bit of compute in them, and they're kind of building routes on the network. They're calculating reward rates, and so there is a little bit of a staking component to that. But the network links themselves actually don't have stake on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're. So then the network links are software packed. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. No. So considering this is a program with Bitcoin in its name, we've actually got if you want to get into this, we have a system that's like, I think the closest you've seen to a proof of work style system on new networks. And so the beauty of proof of work is it's a perfectly linear relationship between the work you do for a network and the rewards that you get. If I have 5% of the hash power over a long enough period of time, I'm going to average out to 5% of the rewards.
Right.
And what's nice about that is hash power is actually useful in Bitcoin. If I'm a validator that's got 4,000 times the stake of another validator, I'm not doing 4,000 times the work.
Right.
I'm building a few more blocks, but it's a system where like your contribution is actually not proportional to your rewards.
Right.
Well, the cool things about DoubleZero is, let's just say that there's 1,000 tokens to distribute at the end of a period of time.
Okay.
The network goes out and looks at all of those different links and assigns a Shapley value to them, which basically says, how much worse would the network be if this link didn't exist?
Okay.
So we're looking at relative to the public internet and how much stake is on the end of these different network links.
Right.
And so from that perspective, network contributors who are providing fiber are actually rewarded directly proportionally to the value they bring to the network.
Very, very cool. I like it.
Yeah.
And you had to design that software then?
Yeah, we have to build the software system. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So we do have a blockchain of sorts running on the system, but it's really more of a distributed ledger technology than anything else. Users can't deploy smart contracts to it. We're not building a compute layer from that perspective.
But it's transparent. People can see it.
Exactly. It's just for transparency and consensus.
Okay. Now I understand.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Now, you said that the public test network is going to be released maybe in September, second half of the year.
Yeah.
But you have a testnet out already.
We do.
Several cities. What is it? London, Tokyo, Singapore, New York.
Yeah. We have Amsterdam as well on that.
Yeah. How's that going? How's the testnet going? Were there any hiccups or any problems? Did you learn anything from it?
So we're phasing in some of our technology that we're testing out. So we have about 30 Solana mainnet and testnet validators connected onto the network today. It's the DoubleZero testnet because we're uploading new code all the time. We own all the keys at the moment. We're breaking stuff. But really, it's meant to be this like test bed for us to figure out like what technologies can we phase in and how do we build this network out. And so we've gotten really great feedback from validators. We've made it really easy for them to connect into the network as well. So it's just a bunch of learning through that process before we get ready to go to mainnet.
And as you grow and usage of DoubleZero's network grows, presumably you would have more cities that are involved, or would it mostly just be a pretty small set of cities that act as like hubs? I mean,
the beauty of the protocol is you can extend bandwidth to wherever you want. So if you're like, I want to run, like we actually have Rockaway X is doing this for us, where they're like, we want to run our validators in Prague, where we currently run them. And so they're getting a lease on a piece of fiber
from
Frankfurt to Prague.
That's cool.
to connect into DoubleZero network. And now if there's anyone else in Prague that wants to run systems, they now have a connectivity into DoubleZero there.
That's cool.
And so people will, I mean, this is the beauty, like, we're not really deep in, but it's the beauty of deep in networks where like users can deploy coverage where they need it. And so this is our version of that, is like, if we're working with like an AI company and they need access into a new data center, they can just bring the fiber into that data center and contribute it back to DoubleZero.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, like I'm pretty old, but when I was in university, they were talking about the Internet 2 at that time. And it was just like basically the Internet 2 was just a fancy way of saying a bunch of universities were building fiber between each other. Between and not using the public internet.
Yeah.
Has kind of similar feeling. And you saw massive spikes in bandwidth and reduced latency and all stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the way to describe what we're doing is we're not really trying to replace the internet. We're trying to build a parallel pathway to it. The same way that like a highway does not replace the road running next to it. It's just a different way to move between point A and point B. Yeah.
Very cool. Now you mentioned AI. You're starting with Solana, or you're starting with crypto, specifically Solana. But you've also said that you're looking into any kind of application that requires, for example, incredibly low latency or high bandwidth. Like
exactly,
online gaming would need lots of it, like really low latency, and then AI would need incredibly wide bandwidth. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. And we would not be the ones like building a game engine or something like that.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, and again, we don't sell servers or anything along those lines, but it's like you can bring your systems or extend DoubleZero to where you need it to, and you can use it for whatever you want. So we have folks who are looking at building CDNs on top of it, storage networks on top of it. I could see someone someday building a gaming platform on top of it. We have new layer 1 blockchains that are actually like from default, day one, saying we're just going to run on DoubleZero because we want the speed advantage of doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like non-crypto applications too. But as you're saying, it's anything where either latency is really important or moving large amounts of data is really important, or both.
Yeah. Man, I would love, I'm not gaming anymore, but back in the day, I would pay handsomely for faster latency.
I mean, it's so funny because like you talk about this to like some crypto people and like they don't quite get it. I'm like, you live and die by your ping time. They're like, oh, I get it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Half-Life. You're just like, oh, God. Yep. All right. Let's see a couple more questions and I'll let you go. You're, as you said, you're starting with Solana, but you're open to pretty much any L1 or any crypto project to build on top of it.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like you think that it'll be kind of like a winner takes most system. So for example, Solana is like on the right path, and you think it'll be like mostly one chain, like one global state chain that's going to be kind of dominating that?
I mean, like Oracle's still around.
Yeah.
And by a lot of metrics, Oracle was a much better stock to hold over a 5-year period than Amazon or Google.
Yeah.
Right? And like, even though AWS and GCP kind of ate their lunch, like, I don't think you necessarily have to have other things die for...
Well, I mean, yeah, but I say winner take most, as in like Solana would be 80% or 70% or something like that.
I think you could see a future where it's a significant portion of activity going on blockchains. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the thing about open source projects is you can never kill them. And so really what it is like, Solana doesn't have a moat. Solana's moat is that people like building on it, they like developing on it, and there's this relentless push for faster and faster performance and faster innovation. If it loses that, then maybe the attention goes somewhere else. You saw Ethereum lose that, right? Yeah. It was the hot shit in 2021, and like it is changed. And it's trying to get it back now, right? Yeah. Like they're like any company or any large software project, there's these ebbs and flows of attention and, oh, you made the right bet this time, but the wrong bet this time. And the beauty of this space is it's actually bigger than any one protocol. And so there is room for people to experiment and go off and build something else and take their learnings and bring it back to where they used to be building. So I don't know. I think it's hard to predict how the market's going to evolve. I don't think there's going to be something competing with Bitcoin on the role Bitcoin plays.
Yeah.
But on the smart contract layer, on the execution side of things, like, everyone's got to watch their backs.
Do you think that eventually they'll, 20, 30 years from now, whatever, long time frame you want to talk about, that there will be a kind of ecosystem of L1s and L2s and L3s or whatever, like multi-layer, or will it kind of all just be on this one base layer?
I think we will. I do think there's a world for specialized execution environments. And that's why we sort of call them network extensions at Solana, because it's not quite an L2, it's not quite an L1, it's something in between, kind of an L1.5. So we may see a bunch of L2s that still exist. I mean, like, if you allow me the terrible analogy, Robinhood's kind of an L3 built on top of the Apex Clearinghouse L2, built on top of NYSE, the L1. Like, no one really thinks of Robinhood that way, but it is. It's built on a pre-existing tech stack by a bunch of pre-existing financial companies. They've changed how they operate now, but in the early days, that's how they got started.
Yeah.
And so I think these distinctions will become much less material as we get older and like it matures in industry. But technology built on other pieces of technology, you know, fundamentally, that is how we see all these systems evolve.
I agree. I can't remember his name, but one of my favorite people who kind of say the same thing, Omid Malek. Sorry, sir. But yeah, just like having different settlement layers.
Yeah.
And a very similar, at least like illogically similar to how TradFi is, right? Where you have you have just layers and layers of settlement, and depending on what you need and what like guarantees you need and how much money and liquidity you're moving, you would use different layers of settlement. So
but I actually think that's probably not right.
Okay, please tell me.
And the reason for that is it doesn't cost any more security to secure a $1 transaction or a $1 billion transaction on a blockchain. They're all the same cost, right? It's just key pair signature verification. In TradFi, you have multiple tiers of settlement. I think we actually went back on Twitter, him and I, around this.
Okay, cool.
On TradFi, you have multiple tiers of settlement because you have risk, and your risk is always percent-based. There's a 10 basis point chance that something goes wrong in this wire transfer. So the cost of doing the insurance on this transfer is slightly higher. And so you need different layers of assurance. Blockchains are pretty binary, right? Like, and you can argue there's more assurance on Bitcoin than there is on, you know, an L2 or something like that. But we're not really at a place where there's like a ton of difference there, especially if you're transacting in something like USDC, which has admin keys, Tether has admin keys, all the stablecoins have admin keys at the end of the day. But I actually don't think we're going to see value-based separation of that. We're going to see separation based on execution time and execution cost. So like, you can think about it as like the model for Ethereum was always push the execution out from the core. So the center is pretty dead. And we see this right now with ETH gas usage. And the periphery gets hot. That's where like you see, you know, all the activity. Solana is the opposite. It's like this white hot plasma core of competition. And then you move out from there into like compressed NFTs and state compression. And like, it's less valuable. There's less competition. It's less valuable. And you can sort of see this like factor there moving where you have maybe things that don't need to execute quickly going for other layers, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily sacrificing security. You're just not paying for the privilege of having it be done instantly.
Interesting. Well, I don't want to get into it, but I know he's had responses to that.
Yeah.
And I love listening to these kinds of debates. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
All right, we're done.